Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Sam, and this is The Lonely Chapter, a show where we speak to interesting people, finding out what motivates them and learning from their highs and their lows. Today, we're learning from Harry Jankel. He began a YouTube channel called The Casual Gamer, having left behind well paying jobs and job security in order to follow his passion. Expect to find out what led him to making that big decision, what are some of the toughest challenges a YouTuber faces, and how he continues to stay motivated to produce fresh content. Thank you for listening. This one was made for your enjoyment. Tell me a bit about the first time you picked up a video game and got completely lost in it. Do you remember what appealed to you about it so much?
Well, I think when I was younger, I was born in '87. So I had a Sega Mega Drive. There's a little sort of small thing, same generation as Nintendo, sort of first generation. When I was sort of 7 years old, and I don't think I ever get lost in games at that age. It was just you'd take anything, right? Like anything that could entertain you and distract yourself from your homework or whatever. But I would probably say that the first time that I had a game which I got completely lost in would have actually been the PlayStation 1. So that came out in sort of 95, I think. And then in 1998, Metal Gear Solid, which was a massive game, which was very cinematic. And the designers managed to create a game which didn't exist at the time. It really raised the bar, it changed everything. And it was like a movie. It was a sort of a 90s thriller sort of techno thing. Had a bit of a Tom Clancy feel crossed with James Bond. But at the time, I loved the characters. I loved where the story went. I learned things from it. It's quite a philosophical game. And it just never occurred to me that it could be anything other than bouncing on platforms before
Mm.
that point. So,
What
yeah.
did you learn from it?
I suppose what I learned was that content and things that I loved in cinema, which of course at that age, you're a kid, so you got books, you don't read that much. You got movies, which are fun and TV, but there's not that many things which appeal when you're a kid. And video games were real up and coming kind of entertainment, but adults looked down at them. It was just a silly little thing. And I think it was the first time I realized that in the right hands, a very competent artist,
Mm.
creator, technical designer, whatever you want to call it, because it crosses so many different mediums, was capable of taking the best of Hollywood, which was currently a far bigger industry, and porting it into the video game industry and bringing that same sort of level of adult entertainment to an industry previously assumed to be for kids.
Mm.
And I think that's when we all saw where it was going, the direction. Um, but yeah, I just sort of wish I could relive those days
Yeah,
sometimes,
absolutely. I
discover it again.
remember I
Yeah.
remember picking up that PlayStation 1 game when I was a kid and just getting lost in it.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about your life before YouTube. So what sort of stuff were you doing work-wise?
Sure.
What sort of things were you up to?
So my direction isn't the same as most people. So I suppose different people might vibe with different parts of my sort of my journey. But effectively, I mean, I have supposedly I was diagnosed with pretty severe ADHD and OCD and Tourette syndrome, which are less kind of relevant. But I most kids that well they don't Tourette's doesn't impact your ability to work. It just sort of makes you do ticks and to be a bit, people notice you for the wrong reasons. But I suppose, w- basically, I didn't do so very well at school. I suppose this is what I'm being around the bush. And I did when I was much younger. Then I started to struggle. Couldn't tell you what the triggers were, but basically, I failed my lower sixth exams, which I never saw coming. I was good at m- physics. They told me if you do physics, you got to do maths. So I did maths and physics, and these advanced subjects I wasn't really interested in. And I got two U's and a D and a something. I can't remember. I basically had I would have struggled, or I had to drop out after lower sixth, which I did, which no one saw coming. And my parents were really cool, And an aunt of mine said, "Oh, I'm interested in visual effects and film. I found this great studio. You can learn about visual effects. It's not a school. It's for adults who want to sort of move into the industry, but it's a training course." So they sent me there very kindly, and I sort of got into film and visual effects. I was still quite young and naive, and didn't realize what an amazing opportunity it was. And I would recommend it to anybody who sort of are at the age of 16. If you're sure you're going to go into visual effects and film, you don't need to do low six, upper six, and uni. And so basically, I got myself, because I was so young, I was prepared to work anywhere in London at any time. Sometimes I do a night shift, so you go to Soho just when people were going home at sort of around about 6 or 7. You'd turn up, fresh faced little 17-year-old, hi, and you'd sit down at their desk and you'd work 12 hours until the next morning when the trains open again. They'd come into work, you'd go home. And you were basically, a lot of companies couldn't afford to get lots of computers, right? So you would sort of be doing the grunt work. And that was film, that was the visual effects, that was TV. I was sort of getting into that. And then my dad, understandably, was kind of like, is there a future in this? This is a very difficult life. And the family business is armoring cars.
Mm.
And so he was sort of he was an accountant there, accountant's director, and he said, they need somebody to go along and make a couple of videos, production videos, videos about the cars, film, do that thing that you do. You're an artist, whatever. So I turned up, and they basically said, yeah, we got Adobe, the professional suite, the video editing. And this, we got a little camcorder, and we have a little SLR. That's a camera with a lens on it. That's what we have. Work with it. So I learned to use the camera. I learned to use the video camera on someone else's time. I was getting paid for it, and I made some brochures and some videos. And after a while, the sales team realized how much they enjoyed me being there, because I was a massively useful resource. And so they convinced management to extend my 4-month contract to what became a 5-year contract. And that's what I was doing. I was doing Adobe, I was brochures and all sorts, and I enjoyed it. It was
Mm.
artistic. They sent me around the world. I got to sort of go to German test facilities in the Middle East, and I got to see cars getting blown up and all. And it seemed really cool. Somebody
Yeah.
would ask me in a party, "What do you do?" And I'd be like, "What do I do? Sit down. Let me tell you, I blow up cars." And it was so easy to convince people that my life was better than their life, that my job was cooler than their job.
Mm.
Very easy. Like almost nobody wouldn't be like, "Oh wow." But it wasn't true. I got to go occasionally, but most of the time I was just making brochures for salesmen that just couldn't decide what they wanted the message to be. I was just like editing and fiddling. I don't know. I just realized I wasn't that happy after a while. I enjoyed it, been there, done that, wanted a new chapter. So I took redundancy pay because I was sort of feeling this at the right time, and I retrained in IT. And that is probably my most significant qualification, because I then spent the next 10 years climbing up through law firms from the very bottom, like on the telephone. I joined at the age of 25, I think. It
Okay.
wasn't that hard. You just help people with their IT problems. And I had this goal of like either being in cybersecurity, because that's cool and everyone loves that, which is like hacking and penetration testing and stuff, or to like manage a department and get loads of money, because you don't work in IT for fun. I'd say that's an industry where you're content with it and you enjoy it, but really it's to earn some money.
Yeah.
So either you do 9 to 5, or if I'm expected to do more than 9 to 5, then pay me for it. And I sort of started moving into this world where I was getting into management. I got into management, and I did get paid very well. And then COVID happened,
Mm.
and we all had to go to remote working. It affected everyone differently. Some people got destroyed by it, and it's tragic. I was lucky enough that we could work from home. We had to sort of redesign everything, all the systems, and it was just a lot more stressful than I thought it would be. And one thing led to another, and I got quite a lot of anxiety from the work and a couple of external things, and everything came to a head. And I basically had, I guess, what was an anxiety attack. I managed to dislocate my own jaw. It was the perfect storm. A whole bunch of things happened at the same time, and I ended up in hospital. And my wife said, This is crazy. No job should be doing that to you. So I'd appreciate it if you left your current role, did a bit of soul searching, and either go back into another law firm, because they're all different, or another role or whatever." So I said, "Fine." And yeah, it's not that often that somebody's partner is sort of, nice enough to say, "I want you to take a breather." She's very cool like that. So while I was taking a breather, I started a YouTube channel so I could flex my creative muscles and practice these skills which I'd collected over the last 15 years. And I was like, what am I going to make videos about? And I thought about loads of things. I love cooking. I'm a massive cooking fan. So I was filmed myself making a bit of food, and I was like, "This is rubbish. Everybody does this, and there's nothing new I can bring. I'm not a better cook than most people. I just enjoy it."
Yeah.
But I do think when it comes to having opinions on video games, I do have a lot of thoughts, and so it just seemed like an obvious uh, uh, um, direction to pursue. And so, I did. I started making games, so started playing games, but writing notes while I was playing the games, and then constructing a video that sort of catered to my thoughts. And I did it for me. It is true. That's what they say. You should always sort of create things for yourself. Um, yeah, and so I did, but I think it'd probably sort of phase onto another question, perhaps you have, but effectively, that was when I started learning that making content for yourself doesn't always translate to view counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which left
100%.
me, yeah. And so I found myself in quite an interesting position because it was like like I said, I was flexing my creative muscles. I was taking the opportunity to make something during a period of time where I had some free time. But I still had a goal, like anyone does. You still want to see your work received. Any artist, no matter how much they say they do it for themselves, they want to see other people enjoying it.
Mm.
Otherwise, it makes you question whether it's art or whether you're just a bit mad. And that was when I started having to really look closer at the algorithms and the content and basically YouTube self-help guides,
Yeah.
people who say, well, this is how you make videos. This
Going
is,
down the rabbit hole.
and what a rabbit hole it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and because it's such a fresh and new industry, none of this stuff is proven anyway.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sounds nice there that as you were talking about everything you've been through and the anxiety attacks, and then going forward through that time of COVID, where obviously a lot of people did struggle. You had that person, your wife, there telling you this isn't right. Like
Yeah.
you need to take a break, do something that is not this stressful.
Yes.
So it's really nice that you had that sort of support and someone to see that from the outside. Because I
Yeah.
think when you're in that moment, you don't always see that in yourself. You're just like, this is my life. It's just a side effect. Like,
100%.
um,
Yeah. Well, like what, at the end of the day, what even is mental health is a phrase which covers your mental well-being, but we can't help but think that for the last million years or whatever it's been, all of our ancestors have fought and survived and succeeded up until this point, and every single one of them has managed to have a kid while they're still alive, to our point. So what makes me think that I have the right to complain that work got a little bit stressful and so on and so forth? But then the other side to that argument is that the world was never like what it is now. The amount of information that we have to process is phenomenally more than what it was. And a lot of people might say, yeah, so what of it? Well, we are seeing an increased number of people struggle and collapse under the weight of that information. It's really that simple. And so on the inside, yeah, it's very difficult to self reflect and say,
yeah.
actually, I am struggling. I should probably pull the plug. Almost no one does it.
Mm. And I think I've spoken to guests before about that information and that overload of information. And I think we talk a lot about like bad information coming in, like news, social media can be that way, but also good information. I think
Mhm.
it's so easy, and I've been there where you're watching good content, you're watching motivational things, you're hearing people say the right things, and you're thinking, yeah, like I'm going to do this. And you get into a stage where you've just been listening to it or you haven't actually done anything with
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
And it's that like overload of like stuff in your head, which you don't then carry on into your actions. I think that's quite a
Yeah.
common thing as well.
Lot of information that needs to be processed and distilled into something useful. I mean, YouTube self help alone is one of the most interesting examples. I could talk about it forever, but I've seen a lot of them, and you could divide them all into two categories and different categories. But for one example, is they want to be successful on YouTube themselves, and they'll say anything that they need to say in order to get good views. So they make a great thumbnail. They are an expert at this because they talk about it. They make a very catchy title, but it does not mean that the information behind all of that, the thing that they have to teach you, is actually going to be useful. In fact, what they might even be saying is something along the lines of, ironically, what you need is a great thumbnail and a great title. You clicked on this one, didn't you? See, it worked. Boom. Give me my view. Give me my like. And you're like, right. And so these people have masses of followers, really high view counts. And so you look at it and you go, they must know what they're talking about. No, it just means that the last 99.9% of people who were looking for what you're looking at thought, oh, they must be useful,
Mm.
and so it it puts you in this position where you can't trust anybody when it comes to promoting yourself, because even the teachers are actually just another version of you, someone trying to promote themselves. So yeah, there's a heck of a lot of information you've got.
So you spoke there about how you got into like the YouTube
Yeah,
channel and what led you to go into like the gaming side of it.
yeah.
You obviously had different choices to make. So how do you find? Have you got a process for creating and thinking about new content?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I am still trying to find my niche or develop my workflow, I should say. Finding the niche is easier. Is harder. Finding a niche, finding that what people are interested in is a lot harder. Developing a workflow on a technical level is easier depending on what your past role has been. So, like, I have been an editor in my time, but I was never part of a large editing team where professionals with professional workflows taught me how it's done properly. So, I'm very familiar with the software, but it actually took a friend of mine to look at my files and my writing and be like, oh, geez, that's a mess. You need to clean it up. And I'd say, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But eventually I did. I formulated it all into sort of a template. So, and I don't get bogged down in the technical stuff, but I have a folder called template, and in it, it's got everything that I need in template form, from the
Mm.
video files to an empty script to all of those things. And as soon as I think of a new topic or game or anything that I want to make a video about, I just copy and paste it and I rename that folder in my big list of things that I've done to whatever it is that I'm about to sort of work on. And from actually that one small thing changes everything, because then you see it there listed. You can sort of go in and start filling the folder with content and so on and so forth. And so that's it on a technical level. But in regards to like like what do I decide to make a video about, that's really, really difficult because I'm still struggling with this concept now, which is, and I've been told this by, various different artists in my life who are proven, I should say, who have had a success, and they all say the same kind of things. And the message is this: one, you have to always make content that entertains you. You make it for yourself. Anybody will admit that if nobody likes it or views it or buys it, that's not going to work. But that comes later. And two is, you know, if you can't think of anything to write, you just take a blank sheet of paper and you just start writing. That was actually my granddad. He always used to say that, you just start writing. And I've found more and more since I've become as sort of an artist. Can I say that? Yeah, I've been working in the creative arts,
Absolutely.
trying to be an artist. That one in particular is one of the best. And the reason is, you start writing, you write a whole bunch of stuff, you go away, and then you come back. You look at it. Do you like it? Does it thrill you? Does it entertain you? Does the first line titillate you? If not, well, then you say, well, do I like any of this content? You go, yeah, it's good. It's a good bit. You go, okay, but it's obviously not an intro if it's not. So you just hit return, push it down a little bit. You can come later, do a bit more. And I'll either do writing sessions for 10 minutes or I'll do them for 4 hours, depending on my mood, 100% on my mood. And I will go and I rely on this technique of going away and coming back and reading it. And if it excites me, if I'm like, yeah, I'm so proud I wrote that. That's a good thought. I will develop that. And if I go away and come back 3 or 4 times and I just never manage to get any satisfaction out of what I'm writing, I probably just write off the entire thing. I'm like, you know what? I can't get this topic to be interesting.
Mm.
Um, but again, you've got shorts and you have full length videos. Some people pump out 2 videos a day. I just watched an interview with a guy called Jacksepticeye,
Yep.
one of the top YouTubers. So you either know him, you don't. Me, I have 30 million followers, whatever. And somebody said to him, I heard that you used to do 2 videos a day. Is that true? And he laughed. He goes, yeah, I did. And they say, how? How? And he goes, because it was the Wild West. He goes, it wasn't the current generation of YouTube where you're expected to do high quality videos. He goes, people just wanted content. So
Mm.
I would play games and I'd record it or whatever. And I would just I wouldn't even edit it. I'd just say, hey, this is my new video. And I'd pump it out and people loved it. And he said, but I can't do that anymore because people expect high quality. So that's another variable you have to take into consideration as you're trying to come up with content is, what do people want? What do people expect? What are the current top YouTubers doing? Because they define what the standard is,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And so, yeah.
What do you think's changed that from that quantity
Yeah.
to quality? What's made that become the thing in this modern age?
This is a really good question, and I would guess the best answer to that would be both number of YouTubers producing content and time. I think the number of YouTubers has simply gone up, and there are more people who start doing YouTube who are brilliant editors or brilliant producers, or even people who've done interviews their whole life. They know exactly what it should look like, and then this kind of thing. And so Jacksepticeye was just a guy, and he had a go, and that's not what we're dealing with anymore. I have a background in editing, so I would arguably come from the sort of the professional side. Whether or not I can produce the content that people want to see, I at least have a degree of confidence from a technical point of view. And that's what made me think that I could do it, which I think is a shame because, in some ways, I think the only thing that should be your driving factor is, do you have something you want to say? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's just not the reality, is it?
yeah. Um, Something you said in there was really like I resonate with as well is like making content for yourself. I think making content for other people, you can feel it's not genuine. You can probably feel that it's not. There's no love for it. I think if you make stuff for yourself, you are going to come across as, yeah, I love this. This is what I'm about. So I'm fully into it.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what people are after. They're after
Yeah.
your passion. You don't go onto YouTube. Well, you might be going to different things, but generally speaking, if you want to be watching somebody tell you about something, you want to believe that they are interested in it and they're telling you about it because they want to tell you, like a friend, not necessarily because they needed to pump out a new video, did a bit of research, made a boring script, and are just telling you the facts.
Mm. So going back to that sort of step from your previous life into the YouTube life,
Yeah.
what were your what were the reactions of people around you? So your family, friends, was there any big reactions to you saying, I'm going into this more creative industry?
Yeah, so from my parents, who are both like relatively successful business people, so it's pretty standard, people, was degree of skepticism, but at the same time, I was like, I don't, what am I now? 30? I must have been like 34 when I did it, and I have worked in my arse off for my whole life and always had decent jobs and stuff. So I was very much like, come on, I wouldn't have accepted too much flack from them because it wouldn't have been reasonable. At least give me 2 or 3 years to have a go.
Hmm.
But they didn't give me a hard time, so I didn't really need to be too defensive. But they do still say things like, if this doesn't work out, I think you should do this because, all right, thanks.
It's
Um,
parenting, isn't it?
yeah, always, always. But they just want to give secure financial future. So, generally speaking, all of my friends, every single person I know, everybody was like, "That's awesome. That's so you." But they all say it from a perspective of they're all assuming that you're going to have a degree of success. They don't have to deal with the anxiety and the stress of trying to make it successful. They just go, "Oh yeah, that's super you. You love talking about games. I bet you'd make a great YouTuber." Well, it turns out it's
Mm.
a heck of a lot more complicated than just
Yeah.
enjoying talking about games.
So tell me a little bit more about that and the ups and downs of being a YouTuber. So,
Yeah, I mean, financially would probably be the first one that most people would bring up, but because I'd worked hard up until that point, and my wife, as it happens, is the most non-gauche way of saying it, but she's a lot better paid than I am. She went to uni, she did maths, she works in the city, she's got a pretty decent city job, and so I was very, very, very lucky in that position. That's probably the only reason she said, I want you to step back and think about things, because she knew we're in a decent financial position. And I just don't think this type of advice helps most people, which is why I don't like to talk about it. I got lucky. But then I guess I kind of worked for it.
absolutely.
But that was the reality. It's just, people are concerned about the finances. If you can afford it, then the next thing that comes up is, well, would he be good at it? And the answer to that is, I'm always chatting and talking about games, and I get so passionate about things, and so on and so forth. So I don't think anyone doubted that I'd be able to have a go. Um, but yeah, so generally positivity, more than I
Yeah.
thought I'd get, to be honest.
Good. That's good to hear. So was there any people in your life or your family, friends who inspired you as well to think of going into that more creative space?
Yeah. So my mum and my dad, like I said, are business people, but like almost, oh man, so many other relatives have made success in the arts. So my dad, who's an accountant. He's pretty straight laced.
Mm.
His brother it was a rock star, if you can call it that. So there's a band called
Wow.
Ian Dury and the Blockheads. Like, Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, that was their
Oh
most
yeah, yeah,
famous one. So
yeah.
he was the main blockhead. He wrote that.
Wow.
Yeah. My his son, as it happens, my cousin Lewis, he goes by the name Shift Key, and he's a music producer.
Okay.
Just hanging out with him and hearing his stories always inspires me to, because he had success from like the age of 17. My aunt was a director. She made something called Max Headroom and the Mario Brothers movie, which
Okay.
and amongst other things, and and that's all on my dad's side. And
Mm.
on my mum's side, it's a bit more pure. Her dad, my granddad, is Michael Bond, so he wrote Paddington Bear back in 1958, and yeah, had been at it for another sort of 30 odd years. And my mum was working in publishing and long story short, effectively took over running the company because he hated business. And that is another thing you can talk about forever. It's so funny. Such an artist, lucked out slash worked for it, but right place, right time, whatever you want to say. But he ended up being in this amazing position, and he was very creative and innovative. And the TV show through the sort of the animated one on the news, and all the way through to the books and everything. He was behind all of that. But at some point or other, he ran out of steam. He's like, I just want to write. And so my mum took over the business, and for the last 30 years has been running it all the way through the films, everything. That's all my mum was behind all of that.
Mm.
And so, like I said, my mum's a business woman, but she took an artist's success and sort of formed it into what it is now.
Yeah.
So, I just see so much success around me of artists, and they're all hardworking. They are. They're all dedicated, but they managed to make a living out of it,
Mm.
if not more, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's amazing to hear. You've got so many people with that creative spark on both sides of the family. But yeah, like Paddington Bear, especially, obviously, almost everyone, especially in the UK, will know Paddington Bear.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know how international he is, but
fairly actually,
okay.
not. Yeah, more than you think. Well,
Yeah.
before I think 2/3 of the countries in the world had a translated book or something, which is great.
Wow.
It was very very cool. But it didn't mean he was famous. But the movies changed everything.
Yeah.
Um, Beast Global. And I think when I was first dating my wife now, she's Cypriot. So she's born and bred in Cyprus. And the first time I went there ever, like after I'd been with her for sort of 4 years, and we went to Cyprus, met the family, decided to go to the cinema. She didn't know what Paddington was. It was so funny. And we all loved it because she's like, what's Paddington? And all her friends and everyone knew. And I never talk about it. I don't raise it outside of a conversation like
Yeah.
this. What's the point? If it's going to come up, it's going to come up. But yeah, so it was this game where everyone in the family was waiting. At what point is she going to clock on that like people know Paddington?
Yeah. Quite a
And
lot of people.
it was actually great fun, and I loved it because I didn't want to be with somebody who knew and excited. It was a nice little thing. Well, that she didn't know, and so we went to a Sherlock Holmes exhibition in like a museum somewhere at one point, and while we were there we were told, and by the way, there's another free exhibition next door. It's really important. It's actually about twice the size. It's something. It's Paddington Bear, and I literally just remember seeing her eyes go whoomp as
Yeah.
she's what anyway, whatever. But when we went to Cyprus our first time, we went into the cinema, and right in the middle of the foyer was this massive cutout of Paddington.
Yeah.
And there are times where I just go, "Oh man, like
That's incredible.
my granddad's done well." He was so humble. He was just
Mm.
like absolutely awesome granddad.
Yeah.
Never talked about Paddington. It was I don't know. He did, but he doesn't. It wasn't his world. It didn't revolve around
Yeah.
it. And so he inspired me to be basically able to live a nice, normal life, be a normal, humble person, but also be an artist that made a success on the side.
Mm.
Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but when you're exposed to it from a young age, right in front of your face, it does inspire you.
Yeah, so it sounds like he was a really special person in your life, and that humble nature is something that I think is really important as well. Being in that world, and obviously with your mum taking over the sort of business side and going through all the films and stuff, have you been involved with that at all? Have you?
Been exposed to it all? Yeah, no. Only uh no I'm trying to think about it. Opportunities here and there have come up and gone. My sister ended up being an agent, or an agent's assistant rather, sort of in the world of Hollywood. I never really made use that I can think of want to be honest about of any of those contacts.
Mm,
Um, Not quite, but yeah, I mean, I think our exposure would always be like fun things.
mm.
So when the first movie came out, we got to go to the premiere, and
Okay.
you sort of suddenly realize, oh, at this premiere, we're considered pretty hot. We're there's my granddad, and he's pretty key. So you rock up, and you're on the red carpet, and wander down the red carpet. It's just like, yeah, it's amazing. It was really good fun.
Mm.
In your best suit, and then all these photographers like pulling their cameras up, looking at you, and lowering them again when they realize they don't know who you are. I actually went all the way down the red carpet, got to the door at the end, and they wouldn't let us in. They're like, "No, you got to mingle more." And we're like, "Oh, okay, I'll go mingle with celebrities if you say so." And then eventually they let us in, and the way that the Odeon works in Leicester Square is you go in through these double doors, and you've got like an entrance foyer with the ticket office around you, and the big double doors in front of you that lead into this huge cinema. But on either side of the foyer, there are these couple of staircases that go up onto a maisonette or whatever that's immediately above, and that leads into that circle section of the cinema
Right.
that sort of hovers above everybody else, and and so we were there, and there's a big glass of a big table full of free champagne, and loads of people sort of piling into this room, and you suddenly realize that everyone. Well, this is my theory anyway. Anyway, everyone there is just the family of a celebrity waiting for another celebrity to turn up. It's really
Yeah.
funny, and everyone's like looking at each other like, "Are you famous? Are you famous? Be honest." No. All right, cool. Piss off then. Excuse my language. And so yeah, so eventually, more and more people. There must have been like 100 people in the room, or more maybe. And suddenly, a head appears at the end. You can sort of see over everybody's heads, and this very tall blonde lady sort of appears coming up the stairs at the other end. I was like, "Oh my god, Nicole Kidman, cool, an actual celebrity."
Yeah.
And my sisters are both like, "Oh my god, we're gonna go talk to Nicole Kidman." It's like, "Oh, are you? You just gonna nip over there and chat to her? Are you? You might want to get past the 100 people first." And they were like, "No, you'll never speak to her if you don't have a chance. If you don't try." So off they go into the crowd, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. I'm not going to waste this amazing day trying to
Mm.
talk to like Nicole Kidman, whatever. So I grab like another glass of champagne. I wander into the crowd, and I'm like fiddling with. I hate wearing ties, by the way. I'll
Yeah.
wear them if I have to, but on my neck. So I'm like pulling this thing, generally being a bit grumpy. And this guy next to me's got this necktie that's like hanging open. And so I said, I was like, "Man, you got the right idea. I might just do that to mine." He goes, "Oh yeah, I hate wearing these things. I never wear them to events, to be honest. I just hang it open." And I was like, "Cool." So we just chatting a little bit, champagne conversation, literally holding champagne. So, and he's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I work in IT. What do you do?" He goes, "Oh, I'm a musician." I was like, "Oh, it's quite a lot." I was like, "I like music." He doesn't like music. He goes, "Oh yeah, what kind do you like?" I was like, "Oh God, now I've got to say something clever." I was like, "I don't know. I got mates who are jazz musicians, and that always goes down well." I was like, "Oh, I like jazz." And then he goes, "Oh, you like jazz? What kind?" And I was like, "Oh man, come on." He goes, "You must know some good jazz clubs around here." I was like, Ronnie Scott." And he was like, "Yeah, everyone knows Ronnie Scott. Come on, you can do better than that." And I was thinking about it, and then I suddenly realized, this friend of mine's a jazz musician. That, he'd taken me to Beak Street, to Pizza Express in London, and they've got
Okay.
this amazing. It's actually the establishing, the like first signature one that they ever opened.
Okay.
And in the back is a jazz, or underneath actually is this dark jazz bar. Very, very cool. Most people don't know about it. So I tell him about this, and he goes, "What? That's amazing." I was like, "Yeah, yeah. You go down there, you eat Pizza Express pizzas, you listen to some really cool. I've heard some great guys down there." And he was like, "Oh wow, that's amazing. I want to go now." And he goes, "Yeah, me and my wife, we went to a really, really awesome one actually. We go to a jazz bar every time we come to the country." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, we went to a really awesome one. It was called he goes, it begins with a V. I can't remember." He goes, "Let me think about it." He goes, "No, I can't remember. Hang on, I'll just ask my wife." And he spins around, he puts his hand up, and he's like, "Oh, hun." And in the middle of the crowd, in the middle of a conversation, Nicole Kidman spins around, is like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And he's like, "Can you just come over here a second? I want to talk about some question about jazz." And she's like, "Oh yeah, excuse me." And then, like, obviously, my brain is still trying to
The
recalibrate what's
sea of
going on.
people just parts.
Yeah, like the Dead Sea, or like, yeah, yeah. And then she passes through the middle and comes over, and then she's like, standing over me. Oh, not quite. She's tall, but she's probably my height, whatever. And she's like, "Oh, what's happening?" He goes, "Tell him about the jazz bar." And she's like, "Oh my God, like Vortex? Oh," she's like, "You gotta go." And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Write it down on your phone." So I like, get my phone out. I'm like, VR. She's like, "No, you spelled it wrong. VOR." And she goes, "Yeah, yeah, tell Nicole sent you." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll mention." Anyway, I lost the note. I think it's Vortex, but I don't know. And I never went.
We'll go with it. Yeah, yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, it was
That's
quite
so
fun.
good. So taking it back to the first video you uploaded,
Yeah,
putting yourself out there for everyone and anyone to see
yeah,
can be pretty daunting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you remember that feeling and what you were going through at the time what sort of feelings you encountered?
Yes. And this is an interesting one because I ended up uploading lots of different lengths of videos, lots of different types of videos. Some are reviews, which is all I all I could think of doing at the time because I was quite new to it. So it was a video game review. And I actually spent inordinately long time on it, like 2 months or something, which is fair enough. I was developing it, I was sending it to family and friends and asking them sort of for feedback. I had no idea where I was going with it. And so I didn't have I didn't have much success in regards to viewer count. I had some. The problem is that when you upload your first video, assuming you have support from your friends and family,
Mm,
which I would like to think most do, and I really feel for anyone if they don't, that takes some serious courage. Assuming that they do, your friends and your family and so on will actually be some of those views and the initial comments. And the whole thing is exponential. So when you first upload a video, unless it goes viral, anything can happen. Anything can happen. But assuming it doesn't, and it just has to survive under the merit of its own weight, um, 10 views, 20 views, 100 views is very, very relevant right at the very beginning. Because the way that it works is that YouTube just responds almost like an animal to clicks. It'll
mm,
stick your video in front of people's faces. If no one clicks it, that's it, you're done, you're dead. No. So your thumbnail's got to be good and your title's got to be good. And assuming people do click on it, if they leave after the first 30 seconds because it's not for them, again, YouTube is going to show it to less people.
mm,
And so you're always after your video having it's to be. You always hope your video is going to be picked up, but right at the very beginning, you have a certain degree of support that you'll never really have again. It'll phase out, peter out. And so yeah, I remember thinking that my first video had done all right and it had got some views and it was quite good. But I think it was only when my second and third video came along that I started to appreciate that in a way, having friends and family and support around you doesn't really help you at all. In a way, you almost wish that nobody would comment, no one would look, and I could do the whole thing on my own to one side. And when I had made some success out of it, then I bring it back and I show it to everybody.
mm,
And most people probably do it that way because I think most people create on the side, like they make it a weekend job and they just play with it. And when they finally have some success, it then becomes a bigger thing. Like I said, what I did is not the normal way of doing it. It's not like I quit my job with a plan of becoming a YouTuber quite, but basically. So I was relying from the very, very beginning on a certain degree of success, which was a stupid pressure to put on myself. Um, so yes, I did feel the pressure. I was concerned about it, but I was misled by the results because I thought, that I perhaps done better than I had with that first
mm.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you said there about like doing it on the side. I think when you start content, whether that's YouTube or like this podcast, for example, you're learning as you're going. So it almost wouldn't be good if you got that viral one straight away because your content may not be up to that level. You're not ready for that step. But
Yeah.
every one that you release, every new video, every new podcast episode, you learn something else. You learn something else about the process of it. You learn from what you've listened back to. You learn from your guests. You learn from for you your feedback from the videos, the comments, all of that stuff, and it all just comes into this big pot. And then as you grow, you're growing and you're better. And you maybe when you look back at that first few videos, you think, "Wow, what was that? That was not quite there." But at that time, it needed to be, and it was the only way for it to be.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you're this topic that we're currently dabbling around is one of the most interesting of all because it's not just relevant to people who are doing creative roles and so on. It's the same with every job, every career, shall we say, is probably a better example than just a job. Every time anybody has a job, but they want that job to progress, they want it to become bigger and better or whatever, you'll have some kind of a goal. So some people don't. Some people just do the job and they float along and they get their promotions and good for them. Most people, no. You want that manager role. You want that, the guy who's telling you, or the girl, I say the person who's telling you what to do and how to do it. It's fine. You might be very happy with that, but you're looking forward to the day that you know enough that you can be that person telling other people and so on and so forth. I certainly always look to the top. When I was in IT, it would be the head of IT. When I was marketing, it would be the director of marketing. I wanted to aim for the top. And when it comes to uh, YouTube, and so on, you have to ask yourself, what is the top? What point would I be content that I've made it? And I think I realized in every industry that I've ever worked at, really, is that no matter how far I got and how much I'd progressed, I was always looking to the next stage. And until you become number one, which none of us, most of us won't, and that's fine, you'll forever trying to be, looking to the next stage of your evolution as a creator or employee or whatever. And so I find myself wondering now that I have 5,000 subscribers. When I had 1,000, when I had none, I desperately wanted 1,000 because that's when YouTube will pay you. YouTube takes you seriously at that point. Once you're at 1,000, you want 5,000 because there are a lot of there are websites I can sign up to where I get a free games. I can apply for free games to
Okay.
review them, and you can get that from sort of depending on the website, anything between 2 and 5,000 subscribers. They take you seriously.
Mm.
So there are milestones within the world of sort of YouTube creation. But now I've just reached 5,000. My next is 10.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. They're really cool. But I reached 5 and the next will be 10.
Yeah.
When I reach 10, I'm in the ballpark of 10. It won't be 15. It'll be 100. I
Mm.
will be looking at these 100K YouTubers, right? And when I am 100, if, I hope, I'd like to believe, when I'm
Yeah.
at 100, right now, that thought, I'll be like, oh my God, die happy. Oh my God, I made it. I made it. Hey, everybody, I made the thing I was desperate to make. When I'm at 100, I'll be looking, obviously, at 300 or 500. And I think the issue is that at every stage of my life, I have always desperately looked up to people within the world that I exist, the company I exist, the bubble that I exist. I always feel like there's someone above me who's done better. And I wish I'd started this industry younger and I could have been where they were, blah, blah, blah. All these negative, useless thoughts going around in your head. But I suppose my point is there is always something to progress to.
Mm.
And it's always okay to understand that you're on a journey and it's about the journey. You'll always be on the journey. There is no technical destination.
Yeah. Every
And
time you get to the next destination, there's a new one and there's a new
exactly.
journey.
Yeah.
So,
And I sort of rounding off that point, what I'm trying to say is every time I've ever been in a role in my life, I've always thought to myself, when I get to that point, I can prove myself and everyone will respect me. They'll know that I was capable of it. But in every industry I've ever done, at some point or other, relatively casually, I got to the target because if
mm,
you keep doing the job and you keep working hard, you will. The problem about YouTubing is you convince yourself, well, this isn't a normal career. This isn't your average 9 to 5. There is no guarantee. There's no safety net. There's nothing. What if? What if? What if? What if? It just doesn't ever proliferate,
mm,
But I think the truth is, from what I'm seeing, in its own weird little way, it does, just like everything else.
yeah. And in terms of motivation to continue to do it, obviously you have progressed massively and just hit 5,000, which is awesome. Um, some videos do much better, some videos don't do as well.
Yeah.
Trying to understand that must get in your own head a little bit as well. But how do you keep that motivation, seeing the fluctuations and stuff?
Such a good question, and it can be difficult to answer just because of the complexity of everybody's goals. You are doing this great podcast because the topics interest you. You get to talk to interesting people, so it's worth your time. Um, I have done something kind of silly. I sometimes feel like, or at least I don't think it is silly, but this is there we go. I mean, even as I say it, you can see my own perspective of what I'm doing, which is that if I had done it on the weekends and on the side and waited until I had some success, I wouldn't have got stuck in until I knew there was potential. Instead, I have just like quit my job, started the channel, but like, that's it. Watch this. I'm
Let's
gonna
do
earn me
it.
some money. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be rich. I'm joking. I never thought I would. I just wanted to attain like minimum wage. That was what me
Mm,
and my wife's like goal. Can you do minimum wage? Yes. Well, sweet. But then you'll be at home, so you can help, raise kid, blah blah, that kind of thing.
yeah.
And I think because of that additional pressure, that idea that I have to do well in this, otherwise, it's all over, is an extra pressure I don't need. And we went to the accountant. We literally had to look at our finances and be like, how long can you afford to do this? my loss of earnings, my this, my that. It's amazing how much finances become a distraction if you choose to be a YouTuber full time before you've proven that you can be one. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just sort of making people aware. This is what I have found. But if you know that you're in a position that you can keep doing this, it alleviates some of the stress and it makes you less irritated if you make a video that doesn't have success because you're not relying on it, you're not depending on it. So that's a sort of as a side note. But in regards to really how I keep motivation, it is the popular videos. If I had done, I think I've got like 35 now, and I would say that one of them has been extremely successful for the size of the channel. Two or three of them have been pretty successful. Another two or three have been okay, and all the rest of them I've written them off.
Hmm.
And people are, oh, it's got 2,500 views. I don't care. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's flatlined. The algorithm doesn't know it exists anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of the successful videos which prove I can do it. People are interested in what I have to say, and also the fact that I feel like I have a window of a year or two, whatever I've bought myself, where I can comfortably experiment and then go with the best ones. So yeah, I think a degree of success helps with motivation. In
Mm,
fact, it's
absolutely.
an absolute driving factor. And I could never be one of these artists who only makes content for myself, that only I enjoy and no one else does. But it's fine because I enjoy the creating process. That would be fine if I was doing 2 or 3 hours of painting once a week, not hundreds of hours of dedicated editing and real grueling grunt work sometimes.
Yeah, people
You know,
see that video of 20, 45 minutes
oh man.
and they think, oh, it probably
The
took them an
finished product.
hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's like
No,
watching a
no, no,
movie in
no, no.
Hollywood. Yeah, you see the credits and you go, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big job."
So having some success, especially those videos that have done really well, I assume, I may be wrong, there's some level sometimes of negativity. Like you scroll through the comments. Is that a thing that you've encountered?
Yeah,
And how do you deal with that? Because obviously that's something in the social media world, people are so easy to write one little negative
yeah.
thing, not seeing their face. How do you deal with that?
Ah, man, that's so I, don't I'm not particularly confrontational, and I don't take pleasure from arguing, and after an argument, I normally feel a bit negative. So I don't, I don't go looking for negative comments, like some people do, and
Yeah.
they create drama, and that works for them. But regardless, the bigger and more popular the video is, the more comments there will be, the more you'll find negativity. Now, I've never had anybody really turn around and be like, your videos suck. But the reason for that is because I am a perfectionist and I spend too much time on each video. And if I finally do achieve success, I will need to take a very serious look at my model and decide whether the amount of time I put in justifies the amount of money I ultimately make out.
Mm.
That is something I'm still trying to figure out myself. But the most popular video of all, this one with it's like 300,000 views now, something like that. It is about a game that had a sequel made, and I didn't think the sequel was very good. Good effort, but just not good enough. I think the first one's one of the best games ever made. It's called
Mm.
Subnautica. So I made a video about why the second game failed in comparison to the first one. Strong words, but and obviously, I say obviously, I've now got like, I don't know how many comments. I haven't looked, like, I have to look it up, like 20,000 something. It's huge. It's huge every day, dozens more. It's too much to be able to keep up with.
Yeah.
But I did notice at one point a debate started. And I think this is fascinating. It's almost a sort of a side note from what you've asked, but it's relevant.
Yeah.
In the game, the team who made the game are quite progressive. Good for them. One of the lead sound and music designer, who is, I think, bordering on an artistic genius. It it's mind-boggling how much his work was responsible for this game having as much success as it did, and so on and so forth. Turned out to be a bigger, as far as I can tell, like old school like old school, like scary level, stupid.
Wow.
He's born in Poland, I think moved to America. I don't really know. And he made some LGBT stuff, attack helicopter stuff, real comments that are generally associated with being very very negative toward the LGBT community.
Mm.
And I was aware of this, and in one of my videos, I spoke negatively of of this guy, despite I praised him for what he was good at, and I said, but I also said what he did was bad, and I got smashed in the comments. And I thought, you know what? I don't need that negativity right now. When I'm a big YouTuber, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go after these people because I don't agree with it. But for now, I don't have the clout to be able to go up against them.
Mm.
However, on this very, very successful video, the second video I did about the same topic, I did not say he was a big. I didn't use strong words. I just said he was dismissed. End of. But a debate started anyway, and I ended up witnessing extreme right wing, nasty people and left wing people, thank goodness, defending. It's nice to restores your faith, debating on my message board of my video. And
Mm.
I was getting pinged every day, and I'm following this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, this is like really dark and depressing. And how did this happen? And then I'm thinking, if I comment on this, my my comment gets massively highlighted. I can very much like the teacher in the class just step in here and you know so I did. I decided, forget it. I don't like bigots. I don't like racism. I hate it all. I'm a Londoner. My sister's gay and married, aren't I? I'm a modern person, modern family, and I don't like this. So I went in and I basically told them I thought they were wrong. I defended the people who I thought were right, and ultimately it drew other people into the conversation with an overwhelming support on the nice my side.
Mm.
And these other people basically got shut down thoroughly, and that comment thread ended.
Wow.
And I just think it is fascinating how when you finally create a piece of media which is interesting enough and it really gets YouTube's like algorithms going, you end up overwhelmed with the amount of response and comments and people, and you're all at the center of it. Negative, positive, anything. It doesn't really matter because ultimately YouTube sees it as numbers and it ends up bolstering your views. So and that's me being a bit cynical. So for all of this, it worked in my favor.
Yeah.
And I think you have to learn to turn anything to your favor. So there were a couple of times where people are just like, yeah, your view sucks. Whatever, like 1 in 10, whatever. Some stupid troll.
Yeah.
And I reacted with, oh man, I wanted to be like, yeah, screw you, whatever. But I didn't. I said, oh, pump the brakes, cowboy. I was like, there's enough negativity in the world already. No need for that. Go find a game that you enjoy and tell somebody you like it. Something like that. Really
Mm.
positive. Like,
Yeah. Try and turn it around.
absolutely. And I just noticed the other day that my comment had like 200 likes. I was like, wow, how many people have been through this video, watched it, scrolled through the comments, read them, all these things I'm talking about, which and then actually seen my response. I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I could go off on a round robin about it, but you get lots of different types of comments, and it's all about handling them the best possible way, I'd say,
Mm.
because they're all good at the end of the day.
Yeah. And a bit more of a general question then, I suppose. What do you think gaming brings to people?
Currently, I think it brings well, it's a form of entertainment, whether it's cards. You see anything from like cowboys sitting on a rock to people sitting in the space station playing cards. Humans have looked for ways to play games to entertain the mind and pass time as far back as we can remember. And I think only recently, thanks to the recent development of technology around us, have games become so much more than just games. They aren't games anymore. They are interactive experiences. I don't know what you
Mm.
call them. And I think that I don't know enough about it, if I'm honest. I see kids playing online, and I think, is that better than playing outside on the street? I guess we're yet to find out. But ultimately, I think games haven't been the negative thing which parents thought they were going to be 30 years ago, and they're like, your eyes are going to go square. It's going to, no. Games are just is just another form of entertainment which we are fortunate enough to see evolve and develop around us and become a new thing.
Mm.
And I don't know if you knew this interesting fact. I can't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me. But the gaming industry, like over 60% of it is actually made up by mobile gaming. So
Okay.
yeah, it's insane. So these numbers, these facts, these stats are a bit flawed. So don't read into them too much. But basically, there was a time where the game industry compared to the movie industry, it's like David and Goliath. It was a joke. It was the film industry, Hollywood, yeah,
Mm.
the biggest. The games industry has now man, I'd need to pull my fact sheets out. If I remember rightly, it's something crazy like if you combined the entire movie industry and the entire music industry, all them, singers, you might have heard of them, all of that together, you like times it by like 3 or 6 or something, and now you're starting to see the scale of the video game industry.
Incredible, yeah.
When that happened, I do not know, but it is not only here to stay, it's taken over. AI, virtual reality, in just 2 or 3 years, we've seen this stuff evolve at great crazy rates. I suspect in our lifetime, 20, 30 years time, whatever, you're going to be like fully immersed in these worlds. Forget controllers. You'll just have your eyes closed,
It
probably
will be the
sitting on a.
controller.
Oh man, games are the future. I'm just
Yeah.
glad we got
I
to play
think
them all like it's still games.
yeah, yeah. I think when you think about games, you forget almost that that little app that you open while you're on the bus on your phone is a game,
Oh yeah,
and like you're getting those same reactions, that same dopamine, and that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
all of those same
yeah.
responses. You almost don't class it as a game because it's not you sitting down, right? I'm gonna have a game of
It's
Call of
traditional game.
Duty or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, also you said in there about how it's like affecting like people and kids, and um, obviously 30 years ago it was a big fear. I think it still is, but
hmm
I think it's dependent on the person. Like me personally, I played games up until maybe 5 years ago, like actively playing games. And for me, I just realized that it was starting to leak into overtaking other things which I thought were more important. Where I would rather sit down and play a game rather than go out and do something. And maybe that's saying more about myself at the time. But I think, yeah, I think it's how you use the game. And if you just enjoy it for a moment and, yeah, you get immersed in it, I think just making sure that you control the game and the game doesn't control you in a way,
yep.
is sort of the key to that. And yeah, maybe I'll go back into it in the future, with a renewed sort of mindset, and we'll see what happens. But
Well, it's actually very interesting to hear you say that because I played COD, Call of Duty. Not so fond of FIFA, got to say. Loads of friends play FIFA, but I happen to know, and again, you don't quote me on the stats. I need to pull up like a stat sheet, remind myself. But when it comes to like COD and FIFA, it is, as I remember, mind blowing how many people. Let's just say if you take like all the gamers of our age, I don't know, between the age of like 18 and 40, whatever, like something like 90% of them or whatever it is, I don't know, but like loads, like the vast majority just play COD and FIFA. And I just that was never me, so I didn't appreciate that. I played COD, and I got my mates around them and played FIFA, and I'm like, "Oh, no, whatever. I'll go and drink a cup of tea or something. I don't like FIFA, but whatever." It's the vast majority of people are all playing this one single sort of thing. So gamers out there that are really exploring the niche games are probably not in the same position where they just sit down in front of the TV, be like, "What should I do? Why am I on a game?" No, no, no. They're thinking about it all day. They can't wait to go home and to play it. They allocate time. COD is just one of those amazing ones where it's like running outside and playing football. It's just a time passing game, and every single time you play another online match, you progress towards a thing. Like, but there's like a MacGuffin. Like, once you get to that thing, you're like, "Oh, you want to reset it and show all your mates that you're on the second run? Yeah, go on then." Boom, prestige, whatever.
that's
And
so spot on.
ah,
Yeah, I love that because now that you said it, I realized that, yeah, I played other games, but I always did have like Call of Duty or Battlefield and FIFA.
yeah, yeah,
They were like some of my pass the time games.
yeah,
And just what you're saying there, it was just as simple as, oh, like they're online, I play a game with them,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's 12 minutes gone. And it's like, oh, I can probably fit in another game before I go out. And, but then I still had, when I think what was my favorite games to play,
yeah.
that was like Witcher 3, the original Red Dead Redemption,
Yep.
it's and they're solo games. They're games that you sit down, you get in the world and you do a bit of time, but then you can come out of it when you want as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
I think when it's just a constant, oh, you go from a game into a lobby, into a game, into a lobby, you lose that track of time almost in a different way. So
Uh,
yeah, you saying that actually just sort of made something click in my mind and sort of think, yeah,
yeah.
that's probably the type of games makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, yeah, massively. And in regards to the time thing, it's the funniest thing. You would think that The Witcher, uh, or The Last of Us, or whatever Skyrim, whatever incredible story-driven game you're talking about, would make time go quicker. One would think, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. COD does. Call of Duty, each match. If you're going to check the clock with COD, You'll check it between matches. You'll never check the clock in the middle of a match.
Mm.
You wouldn't.
You
And
check
what
it, look up, you're dead.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Your mind is entirely focused. And there's a lot to be said for COD. It's hyper focusing. You've
Yeah.
got to stay on track of lots of different elements, which is good for a person's brain. I'm not complaining. It's just that you check the clock, half an hour has passed. Oh wow. You check the clock, half an hour. Oh wow. Half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, depending on the length of the match. Something like The Witcher, I think you're more present that the game is running a parallel to the real world and it's just running. And I just think if you're aware you've got to stop, you just casually look at the clock. You're just aware of the time more when playing a story-driven game. I think those games like FIFA or whatever, where they're match-driven, they could just destroy your life
Mm.
because they just eat it all up. Oh, just one more match. Oh, just one more match. Then I'll go to bed. You know?
And with those story-based games, there is an end goal, like, you can complete it.
Yeah.
You can rerun it, yeah, but there is an expiration of it to an extent for most people. Some people can probably just replay and replay. But with FIFA, like, there's no, you just keep playing. You just keep playing new
Yeah.
games, the same game, but more of them.
Exactly.
Whereas those story ones, you finish the story, you might do like a DLC that comes out.
Yeah.
You might rerun it all from the start a year or two later. But the time that you've invested in just doing that twice round compared to all those games is completely different.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Yeah.
So if there was someone out there starting a YouTube channel or has started it, thinking about starting it,
Yeah.
they're maybe not feeling it is done so well so far, or they don't know where to start. Is there any advice that you would have looking back that you
Yeah.
could give them?
Definitely. If I were making a video on this, I would probably spend a lot of time compiling my thoughts and rewriting and rethinking about it. So I'm wary of the fact that this might be not be like the most perfectly refined list of suggestions, but I think off the top of my head, being really realistic about it, one of the things that I've come to grips with recently is that your thumbnail and your title, this is such an obvious one, but it is so friggin' key. Your thumbnail and your title have to catch people's eye and make them want to click on it. How you do that is an entire another conversation, but it's kind of obvious. Firstly, what do you click on? Just look at all the ones that catch your eye. That's your basis. Secondly, there are online videos and so on and so forth. But these videos that teach you, use bold colors, or you have to have a hook, ask a question in the title to which you insinuate you're going to have the answer, that kind of thing. That stuff is key. If you already have a huge subscriber count, and I don't care, and they know you're good, and whatever you bring out, I don't care about the picture because they're just they have it their phone might ping and the video comes literally down, single video, and then they don't need to see your thumbnail amongst others. So these more professional, more successful YouTubers might not exhibit this type of behavior. And it's so misleading because you are not them yet. You are at the bottom and you need to people to see you. So even if the long-term goal is not to produce something with clickbait titles, you still have to really work hard at considering good titles. And on that, you'd refer to YouTube and Google and get them to list the most clicked on topics, the most clicked, and so on and so forth. So you gotta consider getting people to view your video. Secondly, I would say that because of that specifically, things like the thumbnail and the title, some of your best content might have been missed entirely because you failed on the thumbnail or whatever. And some of your worst content might do well just because it's so friggin' clickable. And so you can't read into your success or failures. You just can't too early, unless everything you do is successful or everything you do fails. And then perhaps you could read into that a little bit. But I would say you just got to keep pumping out content. And I think if you took 100 people and all of them you knew were one day going to become successful, like let's say you took 100 successful YouTubers and looked at all their historical data, all of them would have different experiences. I'm sure of it. And some of them would have success quick. And someone in that number, especially number, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, would be those people who had no success and they crawled over broken frigging glass for like years until finally someone saw them. Look at the
Mm.
actor Morgan Freeman. Guy's amazing. When did he become famous? He was like a grown up. Look at Ian McKellen. You know what I mean? Like some people you just can't believe it. And you look at them and you go, wow, Ian friggin' McKellen, Gandalf. There was a long old time he was just on theatre and no one cared. But he kept doing it because he loved it. Look at him
Yeah.
now. And so in regards to doing it because you enjoy it, you have to enjoy it. You cannot do it because you want to be a successful YouTuber. You should do it because you enjoy presenting an argument. You enjoy compiling facts. But just keep pushing forward. That is what my advice would be. And probably do it on the weekend. Do it in the evenings if you can afford it. Do it for an entire year if you can, alongside your job. Because if you just jump straight into it, you can. But if you don't have financial support, the pressure will be so high that you'll start making decisions that you shouldn't make, that you think are financially sensible. Oh, this one video did well, and it took me a month to make. I'm going to make another big video like that, and it'll take me a month. And it might not be the right decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, just sort of play it week by week, month by month. Don't let failure upset you because it's not accurate data. Don't think one video out of 10 being successful is the thing for you because it's not accurate data. And don't give up. That's what they say. God, when other people say it, I want to slap them. And now I'm saying it. You just can't. You just can't. Because you'll never know. You'll never know if your 100th video was the big,
Yeah, absolutely. There's no template of how it's done. It just happens when it happens, and it's so difficult to predict what will be the thing that makes it or doesn't make it. Like you say, you'll never know if you do give up early. So
and the one thing I would add to that, which is even worse, is that because it's an evolving beast, and it is the way that YouTube runs the algorithm and everything about YouTube. If you're a creator like I am and you follow the relevant videos and they send you messages, so you see it, it evolves, it changes. And how these people from 10 years ago got famous and the way they did it is different from how it works now. And so you just have to study, look at your own work and don't try to base yourself on another YouTuber.
Yeah.
Because however they did it, it's not relevant to you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good place to end today.
Sure.
And I just want to thank you again for coming on, talking to me, and being so open about the behind the scenes of like how you feel around it, how you felt going into it, and everything you've spoken about. It's been awesome. Where can people find you online? What's your name online and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the name online is The Casual Gamer. It's like 3 words, and my handle is at Casual Gamer. But the last E on gamer it isn't there, so it's like GAMER. No, Casual GAMR.
Oh, right.
Just because, and that's it's so difficult to get unique branding these days. But yeah, I mean. Generally speaking, The Casual Gamer, Subnautica is my most popular content. If you were to Google both, I do come up at the top. So,
Awesome.
appreciate
Nice
the support.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ron.
And for anyone else who wants to follow the podcast and see what we're up to on Instagram, it's at Lonely Chapter Podcast. And lastly, from me, thank you for listening.